Bam. And bam. Okay, so as I was saying, what was I saying? So this is B2. This is Daoism Day 2, and we're asking the question about Zhuangzi. Tokyo guests hear this. Zhuangzi, who I, with great justification, call Jesus doing stand-up comedy. Zhuangzi on evidence that he, well, very ambiguous evidence. We don't know. Does he or does he not? What's your opinion? Make claims that death does not end us. Okay, so I'm done. And so now let us begin with the opinions of, who was my group? It was you guys, right? All right, so what's the evidence and what do you think it suggests? Afterlife or no afterlife?
We think that there's kind of an idea about afterlife from story A, when he says, "How extraordinary the one who makes these changes. What will he do with you next? Where will he send you? Will he make you a rat's liver? Will he make you a bug's arm?" So obviously, like, he's not sure if there is life after death.
Okay, but
it could be possible.
That a life after death could be possible.
Yeah.
Based on the, what will he do with you next? Make you a rat's arm? Make you a bug's liver? How many of you agree that that is a suggestion, evidence that Zhuangzi thinks that we will continue being me in the next life?
Being yourself.
Well, what else? If there's an afterlife, is it possible for there to be an afterlife if you're not, if you're not around? Nikita.
Well, I think in that sense, then
Please speak up, woman.
I think that in that sense there is kind of an afterlife, as Chase said, but like the force, T, which is the force, that kind of has the power to change who you are and what you are in the next life. But like, so it says, there's a quote that says, in all the mixed up bustle and confusion.
In all the mixed up bustle and confusion.
Something changed and there was a T. The T changed and there was form. The form changed and she had life. Today there was another change and she died. So it just depends on how things change. But then it also, there's another quote that says that death rests you and life is labor. So after you live your life, then T will rest you, but it might bring you up again. Something else. You won't be the same.
You won't be the same person. Okay. All right. Does anybody think that there is not evidence of reincarnation in the, what will he do with you next? Make you a rat's arm? Make you a bug's liver? Or was it a rat's liver and a bug's arm? Who cares? I have nobody here willing to discuss this very interesting question. Thank you, Harrison.
Well, I don't think it's really reincarnation. I think it's more of an idea that you're always made up, or everything is always made up of the same thing, but that thing is just cycled over and over. But the idea of reincarnation would imply that there's a life cycle thing going on, and it's more of just the chi moving through its process, its cycle that it goes through. Like they say, it's just like the rounds of the four seasons. It's just everything is intertwined and it's just moving in a process, and everything that is part of that process, but it's not really the beginning or end of like a life thing.
Okay. What other evidence do we have in the text? Do you have any other pieces of evidence?
I have one that he states that don't be afraid of change. That means implies that it's going to change. And one thing that also that he believes there's life after death, he says that he'll never be in heaven. And so he's implying that there is something after you die. But what I found contradictory was that he also states, if they bring me to a point of death and I refuse to obey, no, that doesn't know mine. He said I would only be being stubborn. So he does state that like death is in the process of going to the afterlife. So I guess that in some way it shows that there's like an afterlife, because he also said that if I like my life for the same reason I must also like my death.
So you do or do not think that he's arguing for?
I think he's arguing for.
For an afterlife?
Yeah.
What about that one? Our teacher came, Lao Tzu's funeral. Our teacher came because it was time, and he left when it had passed. If you're content with the time and abide by the passing, there's no room for sorrow or joy. This is what they used to call the divine release. You can point to the exhausted fuel, and this is where it gets so ambiguous, doesn't it? You can point to the exhausted fuel. What's the exhausted fuel when we're talking about what was once a living person now being dead? What's the exhausted fuel? The corpse, thank you. You can point to the exhausted fuel, but the flame is passed on, and no one knows where it will end. Ambiguous, is it not? How many of you think how many of you think, okay, he's talking reincarnation there? How many of you think he's not talking reincarnation there? Sam, why?
Well, in the literal sense of the term, he's not really talking reincarnation because it's not like the flame is just going to spontaneously appear back into the exhausted fuel. So it does move on, and it does, although it may become something else, it's not going to come back to life.
Okay. Yeah, please.
I want to qualify that, but I think rather than that, I think he does believe in reincarnation in a way, but not necessarily you will be who you were in your previous life, but you will be a new person and you wouldn't know and you wouldn't remember anything from your past life, but you would still be you. As if you would be like maybe instead of a human you'd be like a rat or something like that. Because when you take exhausted flame, you could always replace that flame with a new one. And it would kind of mean like you've been reincarnated.
I would like to extend that.
Yeah, I'm listening.
The quote, like he says that, but the flame has passed on and no one knows where it'll end. So it's implying that that flame will go somewhere else. Maybe not to you yourself, but to something else, like a rapid switch.
Okay.
But
Go ahead.
isn't he also kind of
Placing more emphasis on like where we are right now. Like you should be content with where you are right now and how you pass, and no one really knows where they're gonna end up. So he's sort of like not on like it's definitely reincarnation or we don't know where we'll end. It's sort of in the middle. Like he thinks we should focus more on what has happened and what will happen later.
Why do you think that there's a focus on what's happening now? I'm not challenging you. I'm asking you to make that clear. That sounds like Confucius to me. Remember Confucius when somebody says, what happens when we die? And he goes, you don't even know, why are you asking about after life? You don't even know about life, right? Focus on here and now. So you think that Zhuangzi is making sort of the same?
well, he sort of is making this claim because he's saying you should be content with time and that's what you have to do.
Good. Okay, yeah, you should be content with here and now, with the time as it's passing. Yeah. I think that this is, first of all, will you please sit up? You look so incredibly shameful, leaning back like that, like you're chilling at home on a Friday night. Thank you. That notebook is also for like taking notes in, not just for hugging. Who can take nothing as the head? Here's your first introduction to Zhuangzi. What a bizarre thing. I love this. So four old guys are hanging out and talking, and one says, who can take nothing as the head? Visualize it, because it is an image. You got the head, that's nothing. Life as the spine, and death as the tail. The next line is also so worth chewing on slowly. Who knows that death, life, existence, and here's to me the key word, although I'm not sure either, that's why we love playing with Daoism, existence and annihilation. Annihilation means nothingness, right? Are all the same thing. Four old men sitting around, and one guy opens up with that question, I'll be that person's friend. And they all looked at each other and smiled, and nobody resisted in their heart. And so they became friends. And yet he goes, later when the guy starts dying, if you take heaven and earth as a great furnace and the maker of changes, the Tao, as the great blacksmith, then where can you go that will not be all right? I will doze off whole and wake up drowsily. So I'll die and then I'll wake up drowsily. There's a lot of evidence both ways. Does this make death any less calm and okay than the Tao Te Ching made death when it talked about the myriad things all rising, teeming, and then returning to their separate roots and to stillness alone, their destination? Does it make it any less okay to die? Zhuangzi? Because notice, we're comparing Zhuangzi. He's a couple hundred years after the Tao Te Ching. So later Taoism compared to the earlier. Is Zhuangzi's view of death any less okay than the Tao Te Ching, than Lao Tzu's? It's really not, is it? Because I told the other class this yesterday. What did you think of the lost horse? It doesn't quite fit. Well, it does sort of in the terms of sickness and misfortune, bad luck. It's horribly written. I can tell you the story in 30 seconds. So there's an old man. The old man has one son. The old man and his son have a small farm, and they have one horse. And they work that farm every day in a small village in order to eat and survive and live. And then one day the old man wakes up and he looks outside, and in the corral where the horse should be, there's no horse. And the old man's neighbor comes over. Oh man, you lost your only horse. How are you going to do your farming? Oh my God, this is such bad luck. And the old man says, good luck, bad luck, who knows? And the neighbor goes, what do you mean, who knows? It's your... And the old man, good luck, bad. And then the neighbor walks away scratching his head saying the old man's he's losing his mind. Next week, old man wakes up, looks outside, neighbor wakes up, looks outside, and they see in the corral where that horse has not been, the horse has come back, and it's got 50 wild horses that it made friends with when it escaped along with it. And they all came back and jumped into the corral with that horse. So now he's got 50 new, untamed, wild horses. Horses back then were luxury cars, very expensive, right? You got 50 horses, bam, you just won the lottery. And so the neighbor comes back, oh man, you were right, that wasn't bad luck, that was good luck. You're rich now. You can sell every one of those and just retire. You can buy your food. You don't have to work a day of your life. And the old man's like, good luck, bad luck, who knows? What do you mean, who knows? You're rich. Who knows? And he walks away. Next week, the son has broken 20 of the horses, meaning tamed them, climbed on back of these bucking broncs, and falls off, breaks his leg in several places, and can't walk anymore. Crippled forever. His only son, his only help. The neighbor comes, God, oh man, you were so right. How did you know? Your son can never help you again. God, bad luck. And the old man, good luck, bad luck, who knows? The next week, it is the Warring States period, let's remember. And so a Warring States army comes through the village, and it makes every single able-bodied man in that village join that warlord's army to go on and to invade the next Warring State, which it does, and loses every single man. They're all slaughtered to a person, except for the the lame son who broke his leg in 6 places. I embellished this. I think that's such a boring translation. And the son didn't die. Good luck, bad luck, who knows? The story has no end, obviously, because you never know what luck is good and what luck is bad. Do you find this a piece of true philosophy? I want to hear your thoughts now. Jack, do you see why people love this story? Do you want to articulate how, as a, 16? How, as a 17-year-old young man who's getting his head around Taoist philosophy, you can actually see that this might be something to remember at some point in life? So please then, thank you, Jack, articulate. Please speak up, Jack, so I can hear you in this microphone articulate.
People going through some struggles right now, that can only get better. You're having a really good time. You have to be careful because your luck will change. Really good or bad.
Jack, I admire you and thank you, and I don't think that was a silly answer. But I don't think it was the Taoist message either. Does anybody? Yeah, thank you.
I feel like nowadays we tend to overreact to every little thing that happens to us. Like we'll be like, oh, we're never gonna get over this, and I feel like we forget there's like a dip, like we don't know how to interpret some situations, and sometimes your attitude towards the situation can depend whether you are happy with the situation or you tend to overreact to it, so it affects the consequences too. So sometimes you need to ask yourself, like, will it get better? Will I move forward from this, or am I gonna accept it as something that I'm never gonna get over?
Okay. Now let's try to put it in a concrete example. For example, a person, and see if that helps us. You all had a thought in your head, and you all had hands up. So maybe you can like take that thought and then go, for example.
Well, this is probably relatable to a lot of people because they know. So someone gets a bad grade on a test and they're really upset and they think that it's the end for them because that was like a final exam. But then they go back to the test and they review everything and they realize like all the mistakes they made and they actually learn stuff out of it and they become a lot smarter from that. So it was kind of like a blessing in disguise.
Thank you. I'm going to make the claim that actually if they had made an A+ on that test, it was the worst luck in the world. They thought it was success and they thought it was good luck, but it's not. You wanted to say something, Aaron.
I also justify the quote, like wherever you go and wherever there is light, there are also shadows. I want to give an example. For example, last year my grandfather died, and you can say, yeah, that's sad. That's so sad. He died, your only grandfather. But also, in some way, the funeral, the whole family united. You know, we had a good time. So you can, when there's a consequence, you have to look at it with all the possible angles.
That's something that just happened to me. My father died last month, and I went back, and the same exact thing happened. The family became so much closer, and I was like, this was, yes, bad luck, but at the same time, it was good luck, right? So I hear you. That's really interesting. Will you come to SAS and just stay? Can I just buy you from your home so you can stay in the class? Because you speak loudly and you're like from another school. I'm half deaf, and I'm always like going, can you like speak up? All right, here it is. To me, this is Daoism. That good luck of like getting into Harvard. Yeah, but you know what? You were in that class that a terrorist bombed or a mad, gunman went through and slaughtered every person in that Harvard class. So getting into Harvard seems like good luck until a year later, right? The greatest, most beautiful, perfect everything woman in the world says yes to you and you marry her and you're the luckiest man alive until she dumps you, has an affair with you, or in whatever other way later destroys you. Meeting her was the worst thing that could have ever happened to you. You didn't get into Harvard. You ended up going to Pasadena Community College, where you ended up getting into the film program, met a couple of people, you made a film club, you started making independent films. And the friendship was and you wouldn't have met them had you gone to Harvard. It was there, the chemistry was perfect, and you went on, and you ended up becoming Quentin Tarantino because you ended up at this particular place. That's not the good place to be, but it was the perfect place to be. Meanwhile, your friends that went to Harvard, they ended up becoming like bankers who had $1 billion but hated their job because they were hanging out with other bankers. On and on it goes. This is the thing. I will personalize mine. I was bullied for 3 years in high school every single day because I was pretty when I was young. I was soft-faced. I wasn't handsome. I was pretty. I was soft-faced. I was just like pathetic. I thought about paying somebody at a later date in my life to like punch me in the face a few times so that I wasn't so soft-faced and pretty. Really, it was very feminine. And but the girls thought I was handsome or cute. Cute's the right word. And I was a brand new student in 10th grade, and I'd never been a brand new student before, and I played football. And football practice in my school started during the summer before you even were a new student in your school, summer practices. And so who are the first people I meet? The football players, the absolute worst population of any high school because they're stupid jocks who have this jock mentality. We're herd animals. Whatever the most impressive jock does, all the less impressive jocks who want to impress him, they will do because there's nothing more important than having the toughest jock of the school approve of me, and maybe I'm going to be his best friend, and I can date stupid cheerleaders too, right? And so all these herd animals with their primate mentality, the big jock happened to be the boyfriend of my girlfriend in hear this, sixth grade. It was 4 years later. I was a sophomore. I met her in sixth grade at the mall. We talked on the phone, like, across town. I never saw her because I was 12, 11. But we talked on the phone a lot. 4 years later, I show up at the school, and all the girls are like, oh, he's cute, he's cute. And she's like, oh, that was my boyfriend in sixth grade. And the big jock hears it, and the big jock points his holy finger at me. I don't like him. And so all the other jocks, I don't like him either, big jock, because I just love you. I'm secretly in love with you. Please, I'll lick your boots, anything. And so they punched me. Like, I'm like, hi, I'm Clay. And they punched me, right? And it's like, and so it traumatized me, right? And then I'm walking from class to class, and the jocks, of course, hang out, just like in cafeterias everywhere. They hang out all together, right? Right? And they're all trying to admire, impress each other with how big their biceps are this week with the drugs they take and the steroids. And so I was like going from class to class. Everybody knew not to be friends with me because then the jocks would pick on you too, right? And so for 3 years, and I'm not exaggerating, every single day, I publicly walked by groups of 15 to 20 people in the public area, cafeteria or common areas, yelling, faggot, hey, faggot, all that sort of thing, right? I got that every single day at school for 3 years. Made me suicidal, it didn't make me suicidal, because luckily there was pot. And so I smoked pot to keep from killing myself, right? This is public school in America in the 1970s, okay? And to avoid suicide, you can bet I turned to pot, and it kept me from killing myself. Anyway, it was Prozac on the black market. And you know what? To make my point, it occurred to me later, and I wrote about this, and it became viral on the web because I used to write a lot. It was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, that 3 years of bullying. Anybody want to guess why? Because I was a jock. Until ninth grade, I played football, baseball, and I was one of those herd animals hanging out with the toughest jock, right? Trying to be popular by being a jock. I was completely a follower, a conformist, and an absolutely unoriginal person. And I probably would have gone on to be a follower, conformer, and absolutely unoriginal person had they not pushed me out of that, forced me to be alone for 3 years, where I had to start seeking other sources of happiness and popularity and girls liking me, because that was closed off for me in high school, which led to discovering books and discovering people who thought differently and weren't conformists and were loners and dreamers and all sorts of stuff, and smart people, cool people, interesting people. Loners were the best. But in any case, that wasn't bad luck. That was the best luck I could have ever had, to be rejected by the in crowd so I could become me instead of a carbon copy of them. So, let's move on now to action. Who's our action group? Oh, by the way, just in case you're curious what my view is on Daoism and does it promise reincarnation, I can't see me becoming a giraffe's eyelash as me being anything. A bug's arm, a rat's liver, I can't see that as me going on anywhere. I think annihilation of the self does happen. I think that's suggested, that we don't go anywhere. It's just sleep for us. But that the chi, the life force, does go on. Did I show you this? If not, I have to. Chi. Chi literally, well, what's the word for weather in Mandarin? Tianqi. It's that same chi. It's that same word. And etymologically and historically, back in their ancient texts, it is always associated with the mist that rises from the earth in the morning. Sun comes up. What do we see as earth wakes up? We see mist rise from the earth. Clearly not a stretch to think the earth has a life force in it. Look, this movement, this animation, this vapor comes, the earth exhales it every day. Qi. And that's why in the landscape paintings of the Song dynasty around 1000 AD, just 1,000 years ago, you will always see this mist, this mist, and that's Qi. And so just as the earth gives off Qi every morning in the form of a shapeless, there's no identity in Qi. You can't say, oh, look, there's Jacob's Qi. No. Because Jacob's Qi just joins that mist, and that mist, that Qi, that life force, does go on. Obviously, as yin and yang, as yin changes to yang changes to yin, summer, winter, all that, the seasons change. Obviously, life goes on. But I don't think that includes us. I don't think in this radically natural worldview, Daoism says we go anywhere. But because it's also radically optimistic and there's nothing scary because there's no such thing as heaven or hell, it's okay. So it's calm. Now, in order to sort of move things along here, let's see. This term of action, in your journals, I want you to write one of the most important philosophical concepts to both Confucianism and Daoism, and the Chinese today. Wu-Wei. Wu-Wei. I don't know the tones, I'm sorry. Does anybody know the tones? Does anybody know the tones of this concept? It is horribly translated into English typically as, in its worst cases, non-action. Oh yes, a Taoist sage. What's his philosophy? How do you go through life? By not doing anything. Clearly stupid, is it not? Benji, how long do you think you would survive if you literally did nothing? Because what would happen to you? Why would you die? Because you didn't do anything for a week. What would you die of? Thank you. And if somebody else told me, I don't know these things, how long can we go without water before we die? 3 days. So I didn't know that. I guess that's what they're teaching you young people these days. Really? 3 days? Seriously? Yeah, okay. So clearly non-action is not what Daoism is preaching. Hi, everybody. Die of dehydration in 3 days. That's why. So let's see if we can get our head around what this non-action really means. Action group. What were your thoughts on this? Who's my action group? So what were your thoughts on this, Sam? And Chris?
Well, at first when I started reading it, what caught my attention was the word resorting. And that kind of implies that, resort usually is associated with last resort. And you try other things, but if those don't work, then you go with it.
Okay.
So I found that counterintuitive, just because the rest of it is saying that it's pretty Wu-Wei. And also the fact that very few people says that it's beyond the understanding that all but very few people will kind of saying that not a lot of people understand what really not doing anything means.
Yeah, and they die in 3 days because of that. Boom.
It's really like the rest of Wu sounds like it's rather ambiguous as to what non-action really means. I personally think that non-action is referring to not interrupting the flow of life.
Not interrupting the flow of life. Did you Google this? Other thoughts? The rest of you read it and annotated it too. Chris?
I think Daoism believes that evil is form good and nice. So to resort to no action is the best way to go. It also applies to the negative golden rule. For example, if you do something wrong and you don't want people to make a big deal of it, and so if someone else does something wrong,
You're fading.
oh.
You faded at the end. What? It applies to the negative golden rule. Why?
So if you fail in something, you don't want other people to make a big deal of it. You want people to just live on.
I can see that. I've never seen it from that point of view, but I can actually see that being a justifiable. Nikita, speak up, please.
I think that non-action is more of detachment from the world. I say this because, well, on the clip when Lao Tzu was talking to Confucius in the movie, he said, like, you can just abstain from the political drama going on in the realm of earth and kind of let everything flow by you, like detach yourself from the world and just focus on yourself. And it kind of also goes back to when the four friends were talking, Master Chariot, Master Rive, and his other two friends were talking, and they decided to accept that the head was nothing. So it's kind of like clearing your mind of all distractions and detaching yourself from the real world, kind of, and all the politics and like the mundane concerns of the world. I think that's what non-action is.
I followed you until you got to the head is nothing, the spine is life, and the tail is annihilation. Was that the sequence? Nothing, life, annihilation.
Yeah.
I see that as more. Did that flag anything for you guys? Did that any other? Did you make connections to any other text besides what Nikita just did? Yeah, Chase.
I thought it was connected to if you are content with the time and abide by the past, and there's no room for sorrow or joy, is what they used to call the divine relief. I think that by accepting where you are and not really taking that much action, you kind of have a state of mental clarity and peace within, which kind of leads you to make the right decision. When it was the Sage Kings became so great because they didn't try to. Sorry, it's just kind of like that.
I guess because this is in the context of a story where Master whichever starts dying, right? And so we see going from death to life, and everybody's his best friend. My favorite line from this: "Didn't you love stop? Don't be afraid of the change." Didn't you love that when they all ran in, and somebody said, "Stop! Don't be afraid of the change." Such a powerful line, right? It shows that even in ancient China, by the way, this radically natural, radically optimistic, death is okay thing. Clearly, it wasn't if people were freaking out about it when Lao Tzu was dying, or when this guy was dying, whoever it was. So I see the head as nothing. To me, it goes to Zhuangzi talking about, I was crying that my wife died, and then I thought about her. Before she had form, she didn't have form, or chi, and before she had, right? And so she started as nothing. She came into life, and then she died, and now she doesn't have form again, and that she went on. That's what I saw. The head as nothing, life as the spine, and annihilation as the tail.
That makes sense to me. But what I was thinking was that the head was the head being nothing, was that the state of being able to clear your mind of anything that is kind of a mundane or earthly concern. That's what I thought as, but maybe.
Okay. Now somebody else was going to say something. I thought just now. Yeah.
Well, I was going to go back to the non-action thing. With the story of Wish and Wush, how her also was always, giving him favors, and Wish and Wush thought that by helping him, they could drill holes in his head, and he died a couple days later. Sometimes it's okay not to do anything. Sometimes you don't need to inflict change on someone who doesn't need it, unnecessary action.
Now, do you're, I want to give you guys the chance to talk about wish, wush, and all full. First, can you summarize it as well as you can to our guests and also to other people who don't get it?
Okay.
This thing about the holes and all that, did you get it enough to be able to like explain it to people who didn't?
Well, I get the stories, but like it's kind of confusing, and to me it kind of contradicts the whole idea of non-access. Well, basically what the story is that you have Wish and Woosh, which are emperors of the sea, and they go to Alfol's empire, and they're treated well and everything. Alfol is an emperor with no senses, so he doesn't have eyes, ears, or anything. So Wish and Woosh decide that because they were so nice to him, they should give them holes so he can sense, and then he died.
You don't get it. Here it is. Let me just paraphrase it very quickly. Wish was the north, king of the north. Woosh is the king of the south, and who cares about the details? Because the guy made up all the names. Clearly, in the Chinese text, they're not named Wish, Woosh, and all full, right? This translator is, I chose him because he's really playful with Zhuangzi's playfulness and tries to find English playfulness to match it, but he's not literal in his translation. So in any case, Wish, king of the north. Woosh, king of the south. In the center, all full, and they're all friends. And whenever Wish wanted to visit Woosh, or Woosh wanted to visit Wish, they had to go through All Full's kingdom. And All Full was really nice. And All Full would like go, here, you're traveling here. Let me like give you the guest room, feast you, all sorts of stuff. You'll be my guest. I'm a really nice guy. And they so Wish and Woosh get together and they're like, he is so nice. God, we should do him a favor. Have you ever noticed he doesn't have the 7 holes in the head that we do? What are the 7 holes? Right? So let's give them to him. And so each day they drilled a hole in his head, and on the 7th day he died, which sounds so Genesis backwards. And on the 7th day he died. Well, I guess that's a form of rest to the Taoists. So he rested too. Look at Bentley's face. Bentley went. But anyway. So what's the point of this story? You said it contradicts what?
Well, now that I think about it, it kind of does. Just because, like, if they had not taken action and if they had not tried to impose their senses on Alpha, then he probably would not have died.
Again, we can apply the negative golden rule.
How does this apply the negative golden rule? For those of you who, oh, you want to talk again, Aaron? Cool. I swear I'm going to buy you from your parents, or else just kidnap you and make you disappear like the No, that's not funny. That's weird. That's weird. But anyway. Where was I before I started messing with Aaron? Negative golden rule. Okay. Confucius has a negative golden rule, and it differs from the Christian golden rule in 2 ways. One, Confucius said it 500 years before Jesus. 2, Jesus says, do to others what you want others to do to you. Confucius says, don't do to other people what you would not want other people to do to you. That's why it's called the negative, as in the not part. Not like do negative things to. No, only do what you wouldn't. Don't do what you wouldn't want other people to do to you. It doesn't say do what you wish other people would do. It says don't do what you wouldn't want other people to do. Now, you said now that I think about it, we've defined the terms negative golden rule and Wu-Wei. Do you want to like tie it up or have it completely scrambled your brain with my blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, because, well, I guess that because they imposed their sense on them, then they kind of drilled holes in his head, and I guess they wouldn't want people to drill holes in their head.
But they knew it was good. They knew it was good. They were doing a good thing for him because, after all, having eyes and ears and a nose and a mouth, that's really wonderful. So let's do that for him because we know it's good. Yeah, Harrison.
I thought it could just simply be summed up that not everyone wants what you want. Therefore, to impose what you want on other people is not really the right thing to do, even if it's something you like.
And this is so then to bring it to its most uncomfortable conclusion, thinking that your good is other people's good seems to be ethically, morally, philosophically less wise than realizing that other people's good might differ and be just as good as your own. Yeah. Thank you. How so? Her question was, isn't this countering against, I think it was, isn't this countering Christianity?
Well, because, like, Christianity teaches that, like, our God is basically the only type of good, and you're saying that, like, your good isn't what is everything.
How do Christians say our good is the only good?
In the Bible.
And so specifically, and their good is the only good because? Because the Bible?
Well, it says, like, it emphasizes it, like, if you, like, it just emphasizes, like, if you accept, like, Jesus, I guess it will be, like, that's how to explain it.
If you accept Jesus, you will be, well, you're explaining it. If you accept Jesus, you will be. Chris? If you don't accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, you'll burn in hell.
It kind of draws to the comparison to that God is the only thing that's truly good, because there's only one God, there's only one good.
There's only one God, there's only one good.
Supposing there were not good to impose your own theology onto other people.
So you're seeing what's going to happen. Here we are 300 years before Christ. 1,500 years after Christ, the Christians will roll up on the shores of the Ming Dynasty, determined to save the Chinese for their own good, because the missionaries know that they're not saved and they need to be saved for their own good. And the missionaries, we will see, are wish and whoosh. And so here it comes. We got to wait 18 centuries, but we're getting it. We're almost done with wave one, by the way. We will be by Easter break. And then we step on the gas. But you got to love Zhuangzi's style here. Each day they drilled a hole, and in 7 days, all full died. Done. Right? All full died.
Also, wasn't somebody earlier saying that, like, you should be passive, like, when dealing with kind of the world and relationships? Like, I think it was Nikita that kind of said this in a way, where she said that you should focus on improving yourself, but you should refrain from, like, worldly matters. I think that's kind of the essence of what the second passage is, just because, like, at first I thought it was counterintuitive in that he was saying that taking no action is kind of the best thing that a sage thing to do.
Yeah.
But in the story, it's saying that he's doing all of these things. Then Nikita kind of brought it up and saying that, like, you should take action to improve yourself, but you should be passive when dealing with others. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and I thought you really hit it when you talked about flowing through life without interfering with others. And so I told you that the earlier, some people seem to be losing focus right now. I told you that the horrible English translation of Wu-Wei was non-action, right? Clearly that's a horrible way to try to talk about Daoism. Our later translators living today, some of my students met my favorite. He came up with this one. He gave a lecture 2 years ago. He came up with this one, non-coercive action. Non-interference, non-coercive. Don't meddle with other people's stuff. Lay plans for taking no action. Pursue that which is not meddlesome. Don't meddle with others. I picture a school of fish. You notice how schools of fish don't, like, follow their lanes, but they don't seem to bump into each other. They just know how to, like, actually navigate and stay out of each other's way, and yet still, like, actually be a society and all that sort of stuff. And every time I go to China, I'm sadder and sadder that the bicycles that were there when I first lived there, it was more of a bicycle than a car country when I was first there just 15 years ago. And now the cars are slowly replacing the bicycles wherever you go. But back in the days of the bicycles weren't staying in their own lanes, but they managed not to hit each other. It's like they had this 360-degree radar, the Chinese, because they just they seem to just really know how not to meddle. And yet, just quickly, so that you don't say silly things, notice that even the Tao Te Ching says, look, you have to act. And so what does a smart person do? You're attuned enough to the changes that are coming, because you know that change is the most important thing, yin becoming yang, and from the minor to the major. And so you take care of any problems you see coming while they're small. You don't study for the exam the night before it. You see this big thing coming. You don't study for it the night before because you're going to bomb it. You study for it little by little, and then it never becomes a big deal, right? That's the Taoist way of studying, not mine. Who are my water people? Water people. Let's hear it.
We thought that water really represented calmness.
Mm-hmm.
And also water will just flow with anything. If there's a rock in the way, water will flow around it. And that kind of goes to Taoism where you just make it flow and don't argue and flow with it.
Okay, now, so I want you to connect that to text because right now you've made claims without connecting it to supporting evidence, which is what your most interesting thing forums every day should be doing. Making a claim and then going, yeah, we see that like in this phrase or in this line. So where did you see these things, Benji, or who's your partner? HK. No, Sam, sorry.
Well, basically, like the earlier line, it says with water itself benefiting the area change without competing with them, and so we're not like the water to the way. So I thought that it represented the Taoist way just because the Taoist view was one where you don't take action and you sit back and you let things happen. And in the same way, it's just like water because it's this here. Water doesn't fight with things and water goes where it needs to go. Doesn't matter like if it wants to go there or not, it goes there. If the path is there. And so because of that, I thought it was essentially a simple the Taoist way.
Anything else, Benji, you want to add? This is where your annotation should help you, right? This is where underlining a line, a phrase, a word. Is water yin or yang, typically? When could water be yang? Who would argue that if water is flowing, it's not yang, it's still yin? Explain, Hanson. Speak up.
But when the water is flowing, it seems that it's acting from reality. It's just flowing in such a way that just accepts what's coming in its way. Like if it's rocking, it feels like it's moving around it, but it's flowing it seems active.
It seems to be active, but what would take water more energy? Not flowing downhill or flowing downhill? Not flowing downhill, right? So actually, water is a very curious substance, and the Chinese is very, 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 very attuned to this. Chris, you want to say something?
I think water is really important in Taoist philosophy just because it's both yin and yang. It flows by whatever is in its way, but then again, it can carve through the terrain.
It can carve through the terrain. Water can create what amazing things? The Grand Canyon, right? So it's not as if it's not a powerful thing at the same time. I won't labor their play with the paradox of water's strength and passivity at the same time. But there's a lot to be said for it. Do write this down in your notebook because this is again another high concept in Daoism. I put POLR, and if you wrote that down, you're a silly person because that's just to remind me you're a silly robot who writes whatever. I could write like poo-poo on the board, and you would write poo-poo, right? Don't do that. Path of least resistance. The path of least resistance. So water models taking the path of least resistance. To not flow would require more resistance than flowing. I guess at this point it's a timely time for me to tell you that to the Taoists, really the most important goal of a successful life is for it to be healthy and long. To be healthy and long-lived. to live to a nice old age. And there are studies that show that the more relaxed you are, the longer you do live. And notice on our private school, I've got to go to Harvard. I've got to flow uphill. I've got to like be number one at everything. I've got to compete. I've got to like never stop running on the hamster wheel. It's getting faster and faster. I've got to run faster and faster, or cheat, and to get to the top. Your water flowing uphill, and you're probably going to die young. So the Taoists were in touch with all this stuff. So what an interesting line here. Water settles where none would like to be. Where does water settle? Where does it finally stop? Huh? The bottom. Nobody else wants to be there. Nobody else wants to be low. Number 100, not number 1. But water gets it. And because water flows downhill, water comes closest to the way. I caught her, I'm keeping her head from hitting the table. It was about to fall off her hand and break her chin on the table. Sit up, woman. Okay. What is another quality of water that the Taoists so coolly bring out in that line? And so water is like what? A mirror. Is it always like a mirror?
No.
What does it have to be like a mirror? Got to be calm and still, right? And notice this is Zhuangzi, right? Where did we first see stillness as a major idea? The Tao Te Ching or the Zhuangzi? The Tao Te Ching, right? I do my utmost to attain stillness, or I hold firmly to stillness, whatever it was. Again, notice A, that we're talking about yin, 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 the feminine, the feminine, the feminine. Not the masculine, the masculine, the masculine. And now. Okay. Confucius at the end of this wonderful, so here's our first example of Zhuangzi messing with Confucius. I'm going to make a fake analect. I'm going to make a fake story about Confucius, my rival, and I'm going to make Confucius say the most effed up stuff that the readers would never. I'm going to make Jesus say, I no longer believe in God. I want to go to a bar and have a beer. This is the equivalent of what Zhuangzi is doing to Confucius here. Why? What's the point of this wonderful story of Royal Nag, a sage who can't talk and has no legs? And Confucius at the end says, truly he is wiser than me. I'm going to follow him. Do you get it? Who can explicate?
It kind of goes with the whole non-action thing, because he can't really do anything other than he can't really control things in his life. Because of that, he kind of just goes with it, and because of that, he has the qualities of a sage king.
And why does everybody else follow him? Because instead of talking at him the way Confucius does, what does this mute, legless sage do that makes all the people come to him? And so how does that help the people? Why does this mute, legless sage gain more disciples than Confucius, according to Zhuangzi's joke? Why are they all coming to him?
Because he's reflective of their fault, I guess. Because because of the quote that you just underlined, it's kind of like saying active people can't look at themselves clearly, but someone who's calm can, like, give you a clear perspective of something. Like, that's sort of the pattern that I saw
of you know successful people, successful adults, and you're like, you know what? They're successful, but they're a mess. They're not happy. They're successful, but they're not happy. They need to look in a mirror. How many of you know adults that make you think these thoughts, or have known? I see 1 hand, 2 hands, 3, 4, 5. Really? Okay, I'm going to skip Zhuangzi and Confucianism. Sorry, guys, because your homework is to watch a Harvard professor who teaches Chinese philosophy at Harvard. It's the 3rd most famous course at Harvard, amongst all undergraduates at Harvard. Professor Michael Puett. I've actually been in a seminar, a webcast with the guy. We've talked. He's the guy who told me about the impersonator in the Zhou ancestor ritual, being possessed by. So he's the first person to really turn me on to that detail. Michael Puett. He's wonderfully enthusiastic. He's very, very thought-provoking and smart. And so he's going to talk about the difference between Zhuangzi and Confucius and Daoism and Confucianism. That will be your homework. Those of you who had Confucius and wealth and business, who are you? Simply put, and the rest of you too, just simply make a Venn diagram in your head or in your journal. It's not a bad idea, actually. Because after all, notice, yes, it's Monday morning, blah, 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 but notice, you are getting an education right now in Chinese philosophy. And it's not dead today. And you will forget it if you don't have the yang to scratch a few notes in this journal. A Venn diagram's a good idea here, because Confucius and Zhuangzi, it doesn't have to be that big, but Confucius and Zhuangzi, how do they agree and disagree about wealth, about getting rich, about pursuing profit as parts of their Tao? Is it good to pursue money? Remember, Jesus says your chances of going to heaven, if you're rich, are the chances of a camel passing through the eye of a needle. In other words, a rich man's not getting into heaven, unless you can find a better interpretation of that than I can. Do Confucius and the Taoists follow the words of Jesus about the morality of wanting to be rich? Or are they different?
Okay, but if it's another option, then you should go for the more honorable path rather than the path to wealth.
When is wealth not okay to Confucius?
When it's possible.
Thank you. You're going to give me, Shihiro's going to give me, whose birthday is this week, huh? No, okay, never mind, whatever. Simple question. What, huh? You're going to give me a quote.
Yeah.
Okay, so. Hurry, woman.
Yes. I'm still thinking of the quote.
Who's got evidence while Chihiro's looking? Thanks, Dimple. What do you got?
A gentleman seeks virtue, a small man seeks proper. Gentleman seeks fairness, a small man seeks advantage.
Okay, so those are two strikes against wealth. Confucius says a gentleman seeks virtue, a small man, a petty man, a low man, depending on your translation, a base man in other translations, a bad man, a little pathetic little person seeks profit. What was the second one?
And there's another one that says, but wealth and honor gained in inappropriate ways, wealth and honor gained in inappropriate ways, based in your like evaporating cloud. There's like a third one I like as well.
Gain in inappropriate ways. All right, so Confucius says inappropriate gain is bad. So does Confucius draw as clear a line? I think I misspelled inappropriate, but who cares? Does he draw as clear a line against wealth as Jesus does? No, because?
Because it's okay as long as you don't do anything inappropriate or bad. Get it?
Yeah, so you could get wealthy doing it through appropriate ways, not cheating people, not selling people stuff that's going to make them fat, diabetic, McDonald's dog food, right? Let's just put a bunch of salt in it because everybody will get addicted to it and we'll make a lot of money, right? Whatever. Yeah?
Like, I have a quote, like, if wealth were an acceptable goal, I would seek it like everyone else, even if I had to work as a street sweeper. But if it's not an honorable goal, I'll prefer poverty.
Right. And so again, there are appropriate ways to seek wealth. After all, you're going to be the father of a family, and the role of a father is to provide for the family. So of course you want to be able to support, feed, and shelter your family, right? Keep them from hardship. But not if it makes you inhumane. Yep.
Another quote is,
Please speak up.
another quote is, in a country where the way prevails, it is shameful to remain poor and unknown. In a country that has lost the way, it is shameful to become rich and honored. Which kind of shows that if you follow the way, then it is okay to gain wealth, and it is actually, like, it's appropriate to have wealth. But if you don't, then you shouldn't have wealth.
Yeah, yeah. If you're living in good times, in a good society that rewards good people, then you should be successful. There's no shame in that. But if you are successful in a society that rewards the opposite, that rewards cheats, that rewards heartless people, ruthless people, you shouldn't be proud. You should be ashamed. To be wealth in that is a mark of shame. Now, so how do the Taoists in this packet reading, what's their take on it? And you got to help me on this because I haven't looked over this part. What did you annotate? What did you find?
I kind of thought as like, if you become wealthy, you kind of lose part of yourself in a way.
What lines do you have?
In passage B, Zhuangzi on acquisition. Now, would that turtle rather have its bone treasured in death or be alive dragging its tail in the mud? Clearly, it would rather be alive, the official said, than leave me alone. But Zhuangzi, I'd rather be dragging my tail in the mud too. So it's kind of saying that, like, if you become wealthy and honored, then you lose something as the turtle lost his life. But if you have, like, principles and morals, and you have, like, a sense of morality if you're poor and have to put up with life.
Yeah, why? So, I see. So what are your thoughts? Why did Zhuangzi say no to these guys? Like saying basically, hey, do you want to work for Obama, being the Secretary of State? And Zhuangzi's like, no, I don't. Is that because wealth and power are bad to Zhuangzi? I mean, so what is it then? Chase, I see you saying no, it's not because they're bad. Do we see any? Okay, maybe. It is the Warring States period after all. Please speak up.
Administering this is the road to death for me, to being dead, because he's not doing what he likes. He's doing like what he's forced to do.
Suddenly I'm successful and a mess because and what am I not doing? I'm stressed. I've got all this power, all this high position, all these responsibilities, blah, 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 blah. Reputation, status, I'm elite, and I'm stressed. And here I am fishing, and I'm not stressed here. I'd much rather be fishing. Please go back and tell him no thank you, right? Again, it's a longevity thing. Okay, please pull out your laptops.